Pleasure Drone. Written by Ali Crockett and David Scott. Read by Sarah Suleimani.
Hello, my name is Sarah, and I'm going to tell you a story called Pleasure Drone. It's about cats, librarians, and a billion-dollar killbot. Once upon a time, in the village of Dartwich, lived a walking walkover called Jean, who worked at the local library alongside the ambitious Tamsin. "Oh, someone hasn't logged this book back in," said Tamsin for the third time that morning. "Oh, sorry. I wish we could just go back to tickets and date stamps," said Jean. "You've got to get up to speed if you want to be a real contender for Brian's old job," said Tamsin. "I'm not head librarian material. You'll definitely get it," said Jean, shrinking into her cardigan. Tamsin silently agreed, but that didn't stop her parping out further banalities about evolving or dying in Jean's direction. Her patronising guff was halted by a "Shh!" as a figure strode purposefully through the automatic doors. Had it been one of the library regulars, like the school kid addicted to computer games, or hedge guy who was fighting a hedge war with his neighbours, or even Stinky Graham, Tamsin would have continued to rattle out clichés like a loose woman after a boozy lunch. But this was a handsome stranger. Well, handsome for Dartwich. "I need an internet connection," said the dashing-ish young American at Jean. "It's an emergency." Tamsin quickly side-asked her colleague out of the way. She led the man to a computer and barked back at Jean to punch in the library assistant's special code. Within minutes, the man was gone again. Maybe it was to take an important business call from Chicago, or perhaps he just smelt Stinky Graham. Not long after, Tamsin left too, heading home to a husband she bullied and a cat, Blodwyn, that she despised. Jean whiled away the rest of the day, trying to make a hard copy of her job application. But as usual, the library printer was being a complete prick. Finally giving up, she decided to switch off the computer when she noticed a web page was still open. It looked very official. CIA access only, it read. Oh, of course. This was the screen where the American had been tapping away. Dear God, he was a spook. Terrified by those three famous letters, CIA, Jean went to close the webpage, but then she stopped. She was a responsible assistant librarian. It was in her hands that were trusted the very archives of the village, plus the keys to the cash box of the postman Pat Ride. Was there really any harm in her having a closer look? One furtive click instantly took Jean to maps for a secret operation in Afghanistan, another to the plans for an extrajudicial killing in Russia. She unfurled the hanky stuffed in her sleeve and dried her clammy brow. Perhaps just one more click. All at once, she found herself looking out from a webcam inside an aircraft hangar. Filling her view was row upon row of military attack drones with their grey wings and sinister bulbous nose cones. In a panic, she accidentally tapped the keyboard and suddenly everything moved forwards. This was no webcam. Jean was at the controls of a drone itself. An illicit rush passed through her body. She stabbed at the keys and manoeuvred the drone clumsily around the aerodrome. "Oh, my days, Grandma, what is that old game? The graphics are lame," said the schoolboy sitting at the next computer. "If for simulators, it's usually these controls." And he proceeded to show Jean the moves to get her in the air and back down. Jean was amazed. It was so user-friendly. She briefly wished the CIA had set up the library's new logging and lending system. Then something strange happened. Jean asserted herself ever so slightly. "Right, I'm afraid we're closing early today. But I've just found an important privet-related bylaw," complained Hedge Guy. "Tough," Jean shouted at him in her head as she locked the library doors. She raced back to the computer with a feverish excitement, and in a few forbidden strokes of the keyboard, she was flying the drone in the warm summer sky. What release! What joy! Taking the drone over Dartwich, Jean now had an aerial view for her favourite hobby, watching cats. And there was the cuddliest one of all, Mr. Crisps, her beloved ginger Tom, asleep in a tree. Oh. After 3 hours of cat snooping, Jean flew the drone to an opera festival she'd been too scared to go to on her own. Using the drone's powerful audio technology, she listened in to Il Divo rocking the shit out of their picnicking fan base. Then it was to London's Primrose Hill, and after dragging a photo of his face into the drone's targeting system, Jean was soon spying on her TV favourite, Bill Nighy, still dashing, even while hugging a 2-litre bottle of super cider. As the week went on, Jean grew increasingly self-assured. With such power at her disposal, it soon occurred to Jean that she could also use it as a force for good. Using the drone's high-definition camera, she recorded fly tippers dumping rubble in her favourite beauty spot and sent the evidence anonymously to the police. With the drone's laser cannon set to gentle, she dried the clothes of an elderly neighbour after they'd been caught in the rain. Doing these good deeds, Jean compared herself to Jesus, Buddha and Ronan Keating after his Kilimanjaro climb. On the night before the big job interview at County Hall, Jean was closing up when she discovered something unsettling in the printed tray, and this time it wasn't one of Stinky Graham's little presents. No, it was Tamsin's job application. OMG, she spluttered. Oh my giddy aunt. It contained a plan to implement cuts by making Jean redundant and replacing her with volunteers from Dartwich's big society. It's betrayal. Utter betrayal, she explained to Mr. Crisps that evening in the special cat language she'd developed. Jean tossed and turned so much that night that when dawn finally arrived, she headed into work, boiling with rage. At the library, she immediately took the drone up into the sky above Tamsin's house and fired at her colleague's day room it is. The Korean runabout exploded in flames while Tamsin gawped, slack-jawed, from her front door. For Tamsin, it was a 3-hour bus journey to County Hall, by which time she was late for her interview and horribly flustered. Jean, however, arrived for hers, on time, and answered questions with the confidence of a laser-enabled librarian. Zzzt, went the doors. Congratulations, said Tamsin. I hear they made you head librarian. Yes, I can't think why they'd give it to little old me. Me neither. I understand that you missed the interview. Bloody public transport. I can't believe my car spontaneously combusted. Oh, poor you. You loved that car. It must have been heartbreaking to watch. Well, it solves one problem. Oh, yes. That fleabag Blodwin was hiding under it at the time, so no more furbles on the bedspread and a free cremation. What? No. It's all right. It's not like you did it. Jean was lost for words. Inside she was reeling. What kind of drone-toting monster had she become? In her vengeance for Tamsin, she had caused first-degree cat slaughter. As soon as Tamsin went out for her mid-morning bap, Jean returned to the computer. Her self-disgust now turned to anger at the drone. You stupid, ugly machine. You barbaric, monstrous invention. I hate you. I wish I'd never laid eyes on you. Go away! And Jean sent the drone off to crash itself in the desolate wasteland of the Arctic. After that, she went for a lie-down under a table in the reference library. Tamsin returned with her corned beef cob, and while her new boss was resting, she sat at a computer to browse a few job websites. She surveyed the drone's login page, which Jean had forgotten to close, and set her face to confused assistant librarian. It's the old bags game, chirped the school-phobic schoolboy. As Tamsin looked out on the polar ice cap through the drone's camera and saw the route it had taken there from Dartwich, she quickly deduced that this was not a game. What had Jean been up to? Shuttling through the drone's video archives, she found the stark answer in the footage of her own car being destroyed in a fireball. "What the fudge?" said Tamsin. Except she didn't mean fudge. And without a second thought, her mind turned to settling the score and more. The CIA's made-for-idiot software was perfectly designed for someone like Tamsin. She dragged a photo of Jean from the library's website into its targeting system and then hit Seek and Destroy. "I'm off," said Tamsin to Jean, still under the map table. "Oh, but you're supposed to work through till 6 p.m, Jean replied. "I'm overcome with grief for Blodwyn," she lied and sprinted out of the building. Later that day, as Jean picked up litter on the library's lawn, she heard a familiar humming sound. She looked into the sky and for a split second thought she saw the outline of the attack drone. She laughed off her anxiety and went to empty Postman Pat's coin box. The drone targeted Jean with its laser, but just in time she stooped to grab a sweet wrapper and unwittingly dodged its blast. The Postman Pat machine uncharacteristically exploded in flames. "Nothing's built to last anymore," tutted Jean, and re-entered the library. Low on power from its Arctic round trip, the drone took to the ground to engage Jean in close combat. With a buzz and a whir, the drone's nose cone opened and snotted out a killer mini-drone. Zzzt went the automatic doors, as the drone entered with its stealth circuitry set to camouflage mode. "Be with you in a second," she said, as she re-flattened the turned-down corner of an erotic novel. Jean then looked around to find a newcomer to the building. "Hello. Do you have your library card?" she asked the figure in the hat. Suddenly, the trilby slipped off the drone, revealing to Jean its familiar bulbous features. She shrieked with terror and hit the drone with the book, smashing it into the wall. The drone responded by firing the last of its laser blasts at Jean as she headed for the cover of the bookshelves. "Shh," said the hedge guy as he focused on the legal aspects of non-consensual pruning. But still Jean and the drone continued their fight to the death, albeit at a more respectful volume. She threw herself into the sci-fi and fantasy section, an aisle she'd personally segregated from all the real literature, and then took a left into fiction P2S. But the drone was waiting for her. It opened up with a hail of bullets. Thinking fast, Jean turned to what she knew best, her knowledge of books. She grabbed a copy of Midnight's Children and used it as a shield against the bullets, knowing it was almost impossible to get through. Jean then ducked into another aisle, grabbed Stinky Graham by the shoulders and pushed him out in front of the drone, unleashing on it the closest thing she had to a chemical weapon. "Hello," said Graham to the drone. "You're not going to ban me from the kids section too, are you?" The drone recoiled. Then, scanning the library for its prey, it failed to spot the returned books trolley hurtling towards it, propelled by the explosive wrath of an incredibly peeved Jean. The trolley slammed into the side of the drone, smashing it into the help desk. Then Jean lifted up the printer and held it above the drone. "Consider yourself out on loan," said Jean pithily, ignoring that it didn't make sense in any context, and she dropped the printer on the drone's chip-filled head. Finally, the awful machine was destroyed, and along with it the drone too. When Tamsin returned to work the next day, she was surprised to see Jean at the help desk. "What should I do today, boss?" Tamsin asked timidly. "Go home?" Jean replied. "I've replaced you with volunteers." "Have you got your library card?" asked Stinky Graham. Jean decided from that day forth she would no longer be meek and mild. She would be a woman of action. That was until the man from the CIA came back and took her off to Guantanamo Bay for hijacking his drone. And now, wasn't that a lovely tale? There are so few girl meets drone, girl loses drone, drone tries to kill girl stories about these days, aren't there? Goodbye.